Joining me is my panel, Nova radio host Michelle Stevenson and Liberal Senator Matt O'Sullivan. Welcome to you both. Matt,
Hi.
Let me start with you. Why is Angus Taylor the man to save the Liberals rather than Andrew Hastie?
Look, we had to make a very difficult decision during the week as a party, and the reality was we're hearing from Australians that we had to see some clarity of vision for our country that was going to get our country back on track. And look, Andrew Hastie's a very good friend of mine. I'm flatmates with him in Canberra. He just made the decision that now wasn't really the time for him, and clearly, based on the feedback he was getting, that the party wasn't quite ready for him. But what we heard was that there was time for and mood for change, and so we made that decision during the week. And look, I'm really glad that we have, and I think Angus Taylor's going to do a terrific job.
Like both of you, I watched Angus Taylor and Jane Hume out this morning, sprouting the new leadership. I honestly thought there were a lot of cliches and motherhood statements, no details. Am I expecting too much this early?
I think you're expecting way too much from the Liberal Party. I mean, they're not done talking about themselves just yet. Look, I think we really need some details, and I think the housing affordability is a good one for them to start on, because clearly that is something that is on everyone's mind. I mean, even myself, I'm a renter. I can't even get into the housing market. So I do think that that is a good one for them to start on, but we do need that detail. We need them to come out strong with some actual policies. We need them to come out strong actually holding the government to account. I just don't want them coming out and just spruiking themselves a bit. We need to get on and we need to move forward.
Matt, do you reckon that's good advice? I mean, we've heard a lot of cliches, and that was part of the criticism, I suppose, of Susan Lee. Should the coalition leadership now go to ground for a bit and come back out when they've actually got something to say?
Well, look, I don't think we should spend too long doing that, because I think that's what we heard loud and clear, is that Australian people want to hear clarity about what our vision is for the country. And so we will have to get out there quickly. Obviously, it's only 48 hours, so let's just deal with that. But look, we will no doubt work through these things, come out with the policies that are really going to matter to people. You know, hard-working Australians that really just want to get ahead, and they haven't been able to under this government, under the Labor government. And what we've got to present is some clear policies that will make a difference. Housing, of course, is one of them. Immigration's another. We want to provide some flexibility in the childcare settings. That's what Angus Taylor has already mentioned are going to be our priorities, and I look forward to working with him.
All right, Labor MPs are pretending that Susan Lee's axing is proof of misogyny within the Liberal Party. Now, I think that's rubbish, but the Libs weren't helped by women's advocate Charlotte Mortlock announcing this morning that she'd torn up her Liberal Party membership. Matt, you were part of that not-so-secret meeting on the morning of former Liberal MP Katie Allen's funeral. That's been heavily criticised. If you had your time over, would you have done it differently?
Well, we met out in the suburbs for a good reason, not realising we were being tailed by paparazzi. Look, these are discussions that should be happening, behind closed doors, and obviously should be happening discreetly. Unfortunately, it was exposed in the way that it was, and that certainly wasn't the intention of anyone attending. Look, the reality is, over 2 million voters that voted for us last time, if you believe the polls, they're saying they're not going to vote for us now, and that means that about 1 million female voters are saying the same thing. So, look, I get how we can look at these things through gendered lenses, but the reality is what all Australians want, including women, of course, is policies that are going to matter to them, policies that are going to help them get ahead, policies that are going to help them buy a home, policies that are going to help them to afford to live. And what we're seeing is a lack of clarity around that. So that's why we made the decision we did. And look, I get how the public will see this, and those commentators and those particularly those who are opposed to us want to project this as a gendered thing. But look, the reality is we've got to get back to what matters to all Australians.
Charlotte Mortlock had drafted a proposal for New South Wales Liberals to introduce gender quotas. That proposal was binned a couple of weeks ago. Now Charlotte's gone. Are the Liberal Party better off with Charlotte Mortlock and her gender quotas?
Look, I'm a big fan of Charlotte Mortlock. I know her personally, and I am part of the Liberal Party because of her. She's done some incredible work bringing great women into the fold, and she needs to be really championed and thanked for that. I do think this is a really sticky one to discuss, like whether we need to have those gender quotas. I do think we have a problem within the party that there isn't enough women and that they aren't championed hard enough. But how do we champion champion them and how do we get them in those positions of power? I think that's a bigger discussion. Do we need quotas per se? I don't know, but I do think we need to be having the discussion. And unfortunately, it gets lost. The nuance in the discussion gets lost.
Matt, does it frustrate you as a Liberal? I mean, you're criticised for rolling Susan Lee, the first Liberal leader, but of course the Labor Party rolled Julia Gillard, the first Australian Prime Minister. On top of that, you know, the Liberals have a woman problem. Well, you've had a female leader for the last 9 months. Now you've got a female deputy. Of course, the Labor Party are led by 2 men.
Yeah, look, of course, and I pointed out the fact that a number of women that have said they're not going to vote for us at the moment, and so we've got to address that. Look, the problem is, obviously, you've got to be in a competitive position to be able to win seats. We actually had, right across the country, some terrific women standing for us at the last election. Here in Western Australia, we had some wonderful women standing for us. But, of course, you know, if your electoral cycle is such that you're not in a competitive position, you can't see those people get in. So I think the Liberal Party has gone to great lengths to improve our capacity to attract women that want to stand for us, that want to put themselves forward. And, you know, clearly we've got to improve more collectively to be able to be competitive so that we can get those women in.
All right, my colleague Andrew Clennell took Trade Minister Don Farrell to task this morning after it was revealed he spent more than $90,000 flying his wife and adult kids around the country under parliamentary family reunion benefits. Have a look.
Well, the first observation I'd make, Andrew, is that I've complied strictly with every single rule in this area, and to the best of my knowledge, nobody has said otherwise.
Matt, this is something that really frustrates me when people defend their actions with, well, it wasn't wrong. Yeah, sure, it wasn't wrong, but was it wise?
Yeah, look, obviously this is. I'll be on a hiding to nothing with you and your listeners if I didn't stick the boots in to Don Farrell. Look, I'm not in Don's situation, right? I'm not a senior minister. I travel to Canberra a lot and I'm away from family, but I'm home most weekends, so I don't really use the family and travel much at all. Someone like Don, who's away a lot, maybe there's a case for his use. I don't know completely exactly, you know, what he was using for and what his personal circumstances were. But look, obviously these things don't pass the pub test, and really that's what we have to be accountable to. And we are accountable every time we head to the election and ballot box, and the Australian people will hold us to account. But look, I think at least he wasn't keeping a car waiting for 8 hours out the front of the Australian Open. I mean, I think that clearly goes way too far.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you on that one. One of the things that got people's attention, Michelle, was he'd paid for his wife to take a flight to join him at Uluru for a function. Here's his explanation. Have a listen.
I make no apologies for supporting Australian tourism operators in the Red Centre. I think that is my job, Andrew.
Don't you love the not-so-subtle shift of topic? The issue was his wife's travel, and he pretends the outrage is over whether or not he's doing a good job promoting tourism in the Red Centre.
Absolutely. The optics on this are just horrific. And it's wild to me that while people can't afford to buy, you know, the daily essentials, we've got them spending all our cash, $90,000, to fly their wives and whoever to join them on some luxury, you know, dinner out. I don't understand how they can sit there and justifiably say that, well, it's within the rules. It might be within the rules, but it is a bad look, and it's our money that you are wasting.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, former Victorian Liberal Premier Jeff Kennett is urging his party to do preference deals with One Nation to ensure the Jacinta Allen government is defeated at the November state election. A new poll shows in Victoria, One Nation is currently sitting on 21% of the primary vote, only 2 points behind Labor, and behind the Coalition sitting on 29%. Matt, it's pretty smart, isn't it, for the Liberals in Victoria and the Coalition federally to swap preferences with One Nation?
Oh, look, absolutely. Look, there's actually a great deal that we have in common with One Nation, and I work very closely with my One Nation colleagues, obviously Pauline Hanson, but some of our others. Malcolm Roberts, in particular, I'm particularly fond of. He's a very hard worker in the Australian Senate. Look, and so, you know, I think what we've seen with the polls and the fact that Australians are saying they're going to shift their vote to One Nation has been the big wake-up call that we've required. I mean, it's been a massive issue for us to have to contend with, and I think it's eminently sensible to be working on a preference deal there in Victoria, and I hope that we'll do that federally.
Now, that, of course, would mean that members of the coalition would have to stop demonising One Nation. But, I mean, if the ALP are going to say, oh, how are you dealing with One Nation? I mean, they swap different preferences with the Greens. Right?
I know. When you talk about, like, preference deals, the Greens is one of the worst preference deals that they do. I mean, they're basically supporting a whole party that has just turned their back on what they were basically fundamentally born to do, and that was to like be about the environment, and now they've become like about pro-Palestine. But I think what we need to do is make sure that we are representing people as a whole, and One Nation are representing people. They are getting votes because people have had enough. And I think that we can't keep demonising these politicians that we don't agree with, because at the end of the day, you're just demonising a section of society that is voting for them.
Yep. Michelle Stevenson, Senator Matt O'Sullivan, thanks to both of you for your time tonight.